Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and very good evening to Madam Martini. My name is Muhammad Akmal bin Isman and I am assigned as the moderator for this group, and this is member of my group. Can you guys please introduce yourself?
Okay, I am panelist number 1. My name is Muhammad Daniel Kimi bin Kamarul Zaman. My ID number is KNJ 2005103009.
Assalamualaikum.
And for the next presenter,
Muhammad Ilhan Akmal bin Adi Gaddafi. My ID number is KNJ 2005101145.
Assalamualaikum. I'm the third moderator. My name is Minhalina binti Rosli and my ID number is KNJ 20051021.
Next slide. Okay, thank you. And to continue this presentation, I will explain about the definition of sampling. For the definition of sampling, according to NFR Search 2015, sampling has received the right definition by major authors on social research method. It has been defined as the process of selecting a smaller group of participants to tell us essentially what a larger population might tell us if we ask every member of the larger population the same question. Strategy of selecting an appropriate sample that address bias and possible distortion of data. A more direct definition is the method used for selecting a given number of people or things from a population. The desire to draw inference about a large population from a subset of that population is the main concern for a researcher. Therefore, the researcher must ascertain that the sample truly represents the population by using strategies of selecting an appropriate sample that address bias and possible distortion of the data. For the introduction general article A, we use the title is Human Resource Management in a Digital Era through the lens of the next generation human resource manager. And the researcher's name is Roberta Fenech, which is the journal is Journal of Management Information and Decision Science. The objective of Journal Article A is the purpose of exploratory research study is to investigate how undergraduate human resource management students perceive human resource management in a digital era. For the research question, which is how do human resource management undergraduate perceive human resource management in a digital era? The finding of Journal Article A is the result of a content analysis of the audio transcription of the two focus group held with human resource management undergraduate. The lead investigator notes as well as note held by participants were used as supplementary data to the audio transcriptions. For the second journal article, which is Journal Article B, the title is Promising Areas for Developing HR Manager Competencies in the Digital Age. There are three researchers' names, which is V.A. Kapitanov, O.S. Osipova, and L.S. Chikileva. The journal is Polius Research Institute of M.F. Stelmark, Moscow, Russia. The objective of Journal Article B is to summarize the direction and form of competence development demanded by HR specialists in the condition of digitalization. And the finding, the result of our research have shown that there is uneven involvement of Russian organization in the process of digital transformation. Next, for the sampling process act, is an operational sampling process can be divided into 7 steps as given below. For the first one, which is defining the target population, the defining the population of interest for business research is the first step in sampling process. In general, target population is defined in terms of element, sampling unit, extent, and time frame. Secondly, specifying the sampling frame. Once a definition of population is clear, researchers should decide on the sampling frame. A sampling frame is the list of elements from which the sample may be drawn. For the third one, which is specifying the sampling unit. Sampling unit is a basic unit that contains a single element or a group of elements of the population to be sampled. The fourth is selection of this sampling method, which is the sampling method outlines the way in which the sample unit are to be selected. The choice of the sampling method is influenced by the objective of the business research, availability of financial resource, time constraint, and the nature of the problem to be investigated. The fifth one is the determination of sample size. The sample size plays a crucial role in the sampling process. There are various ways of classifying this technique used in determining sample size. For the second last, which is sixth one, specifying the sampling plan. In this step, the specification and decision regarding the implementation of the research process are outlined. And lastly, selecting the sample, this is the final step in the sampling process where the actual selection of the sample elements is carried out. At this stage, it is necessary that the interviewers stick to the rules outlined for the smooth implementation of the business research. And there are 4 types of sampling technique. According to Shona McCombie's 2019, probability sampling means that every member of the population has a chance of being selected. It is mainly used in quantitative research. If you want to produce results that are representative of the whole population, probability sampling technique are the most valid choice. There are 4 main types of sampling technique, which is to this is to draw valid conclusion from your result. You have to carefully decide how you will select a sample that is representative of the group as whole. There are 2 types of sampling method. Probability sampling involves random selection, allowing you to make strong statistical inference about the whole group. Non-probability sampling involves non-random selection based on convenience or other criteria, allowing you easily to collect data. For the 4 types of sampling technique, the first one is simple random sampling. In a simple random sample, every member of the population has an equal chance of being selected. Your sampling frame should include the whole population. For the second one is systematic sampling, which is systematic sampling is similar to simple random sampling, but it is usually slightly easier to conduct. Every member of the population is listed with a number, but instead of randomly generating numbers, individuals are chosen at regular intervals. Thirdly, stratified sampling, which is stratified sampling involves dividing the population into subpopulation that may differ in important ways. It allows you to draw more precise conclusion by ensuring that every subgroup is properly represented in the sample. For the last type of sampling technique, which is cluster sampling, also involves dividing the population into subgroups, but each subgroup would have similar characteristics to the whole sample. Instead of sampling individual from each subgroup, you randomly select entire subgroup. To continue this session, Daniel will explain about the literature review.
Thank you, Mr. Harit, for the explanation. So this is my part. I will introduce myself. and explain it more. So we move to literature review. According to Creswell 2005, a review of the literature is a written summary of journal articles, books, and other documents that describe the past and current state of information, organizes the literature into topics and document a needs for a proposed study. For the next information, literature review is a piece of academic writing demonstrating knowledge and understanding of the academic literature of literature on a specific topic placed in context. A literature review also includes a critical evaluation of the materials. This is why it is called a literature review rather than a literature report. Uh, from illustrated the difference between reporting and reviewing. Think about television or film review articles. These articles include content such as a brief synopsis or the key point of the film or program plus the critics on evaluation. Similarly, the two main objectives of a literature review are firstly the content covering existing research, theories, and evidence, and secondly, your own critical evaluation and discussion of this content. Usually, a literature review forms a section or part of a dissertation, research project, or long essay. However, it can also be set and assessed as a standalone piece of work. In a larger piece of writing work, such as a dissertation or project, a literature review is usually one of the first tasks carried out after deciding on a topic. Reading combined with critical analysis can help to refine a topic and frame research questions. A literature review, a literature review establishes familiarity with and understanding of current research in a particular field before carrying out a new investigation. Conducting a literature review should enable you to find out bawah sikit slide. So we move to the benefits of literature review. According to M. Rahman 2022, a literature review is a piece of academic writing and demonstrating knowledge and understanding of the academic literature on a specific topic placed in context. A literature review also includes a critical evaluation of the material. This is why it is called a literature review rather than a literature report. For the first benefit is familiarity with the current knowledge. According to the University of Illinois 2022 literature review, literature review allows researchers to gain familiarity with the existing knowledge in their selected field, as well as the boundaries and limitation of that field. For the next benefit is information synthesis. A literature review is a very thorough and methodical exercise. It can be used to synthesize information and draw conclusions about a particular topic. Through a careful evaluation and critical summation, researchers can draw a clear and comprehensive picture of the chosen topic. For the three benefit is creation of new body of knowledge. One of the key advantage of literature review is that it creates new body of knowledge. Through careful evaluation and critical summarization, researchers can create a new body of knowledge and enrich their field of study. So we move to journal article B. Journal article B is simple. Journal article B is use simple sampling method. This journal article is using simple sampling method. For citation, according to Julius Simkus 2022, simple random sampling is a sampling technique in which each member of a population has an equal chance of being chosen through the use of an unbiased selection method. Each subject in the sample is given a number and then the sample is chosen by a random method. A simple random A simple random sample takes a tiny law. Random portion of the whole population represent the whole information set. Wherever every member has associate degree equal chance of being chosen. A sample is the participant that researchers select from a target population. The group are interested in to make generalization about. As an entire population tend to be too large to work with, a smaller group of participants must act as a representative sample. The random sampling method is one of the simplest and most common form of collecting data, at, as it is meant to provide an unbiased representation of a group. The random subset of selected individual is used to represent an entire data set. The goal of simple random sampling is to create a manageable, balanced subset of individuals that is representative of a larger group that will otherwise be too challenging to sample. Yang tadi tu lain. Yang betul lah tadi. We move to probability sampling. Probability sampling is using for journal article A. According to Paul J. Lavrakas 2008, probability sampling refers to the selection of a sample from a population. When this selection is based on the principle of randomization, that is random selection or change. Probability sampling is more complex, more time consuming, and usually more costly than non-probability sampling. When choosing a probability sample design, the goal is to minimize the sampling error of the estimate for the most important survey variables, while simultaneously minimizing the time and cost of conducting the survey. Some operational constraints can also have an impact on the choice, such as characteristics of the survey frame. Probability sampling is based on the fact that every member of a population has a known and equal chance of being selected. Probability sampling gives you the best chance to create a sample that is truly representative of the population. For example, a person may have a better chance of being chosen if their life close to the researchers on have access to computerized. Probability sampling gives you the best chance to create a sample that is true representative of the population. For non-probability sampling is used for journal article B. According to Question Pro 2020, non-probability sampling is defined as a sampling technique in which the researchers select sample based on the subjective judgment of the researchers. rather than random selection. It is a less stringent method. This sampling method depends heavily on the expertise of the researchers. It is carried out by observation, and researchers use it widely for qualitative research. Use the type of sampling to indicate if a particular trait or characteristic exists in a population. Researchers widely use the non-probability sampling method when they are aimed at conducting qualitative research, pilot studies, or exploratory research. Researchers use it when they have limited time to conduct research or have budget constraints. Non-probability sampling is a sampling method in which not all members of the population have an equal chance of participating in the study. Unlike probability sampling, each member of the population has a known chance of being selected. Non-probability sampling is most useful for exploratory studies like a pilot survey, deploying a survey to a smaller sample compared to predetermined sample size. Researchers use this method in studies where it is impossible to draw random probability sampling due to time or cost considerations.
Okay, thank you, then Muhammad Daniel, for the explanation. Next, I will pass it.
Hello, my name is Min Halina, and I will continue with the slide that strange between convenient sampling technique and simple random sampling. The first one is convenient sampling technique. According to Thomas W. Edgar and David Omans 2017, convenient sampling is the most common form of non-probabilistic sampling, mostly because it is misused. Convenient sampling is a method of collecting samples by taking samples that are conveniently located around a location or internet service. Second, strength of convenience sampling. According to Form Plus Block 2020, convenience sampling speeds up the research process, helping you to save time and cost. You don't need to invest lots of resources to collect responses from the members of the research population. It also allows for immediate research outcome. The last one is strength of simple random sampling. According to Form Plus Block 2020, simple random sampling is the best method for collecting data from a large population of interest. It gives a fair representation of the variables in the target population and helps you eliminate researchers' bias. Next. Simple random sampling. According to Editor-in-Chief 2020, the random sampling process identifies individuals who belong to an overall population. This demography is a reflection of the exact sample that researchers wish to interview or study. Because of the structure, it becomes much easier to form a sample group since the only work necessary is to identify the components of the targeted demographic. When you have a group of researchers pursuing information, then there is the possibility that a conscious or unconscious bias may apply to the application of this data. Simple random sampling reduces this risk by allowing for multiple types of randomness in the selection of the individuals or circumstance being studied. The most common option with this advantage is called the lottery method. In all, it involves the population group being selected through a random draw, which could be done through the example of having everyone's name in a hat. Probability, strength, and weakness in journal article A. When we choose certain items out of the whole population to analyze the data and draw a conclusion thereon, it is called sampling. According to Metstopia 2022, the way of sampling in which each item in the population has an equal chance for getting selected is called probability sampling. Probability sampling use lesser reliance over the human judgment, which makes the overall process free from over-biasness. Next, strength. The first one is cost effective. As the task of assignment of random number to different items of population is over, the process is half done. This process saves cost and time to a great extent. We can take any number of samples from this process. The second one is involve lesser degree of judgment. While assigning the number to an item of the population, the person assigns it in a random trend that makes the process of probability sampling more effective and more accurate. For the weakness is chance of selecting specific class of samples only. If a surveyor is appointed to survey about any data relating to family members, there is likely chance that she or he will develop a trend of starting to number from the eldest member to the youngest, and numbers will be only increase or decreasing only. In this case, only oldest or the latest generation will be taken as samples. The last one is redundant and monotonous work. As the surveyor is asked to do a repetitive job to assign the numbers and to take the information, there is likely chance that the surveyor suffers from monotony and the effectiveness of the system will be reduced. Next. Non-probability strength and weakness for journal article B. According to Canada 2019, non-probability sampling is a method of selecting units from a population using a subjective. Since non-probability sampling does not require a complete survey frame, it is a fast, easy, and inexpensive way of obtaining data.
Okay. Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Ilhan Akmal bin Adi Gaddafi. Okay, I will continue with the from non-probability, strength and weakness, journal B. I will start with strength. Quite and convenient. As a general rule, non-probability samples can be constituted quite, which allow the survey to be launched, execute and finish it in shorter times. The second one is inexpensive. It usually only takes a few hours to an interviewer to conduct such a survey. As well, non-probability samples are generally not spread out geographically. Therefore, traveling expenses for interviewers are low. In web panels or crowdsourcing no interviewers are necessary. Tracing and precision of non-respondents are not required or less demanding. The next one is weakness. The first one, selecting bias. In order to make inferences about the population, it requires strong assumption about the similarity between the sample and population, even though the respondents are self-selected. Due to the selection bias presented in all non-probability samples, these are often dangerous assumptions to make. When generalization to the whole population is to be made, probability sampling should be performed instead. Difficult of assessing the quality. It is impossible to determine the probability that a unit in the population is selected for the sample, so reliable estimate and estimate of sampling error cannot be computed. Reason why sampling is important in research. According Mark Work 2017, sampling is the basic of how we can draw conclusion about a population without being able to inspect the whole population, since it's frequently impractical or impossible to look at the whole population. Sampling gives us more practical ways of approaching the problem. Reason why sampling important in research. Sampling bias occur when the sample does not reflect the characteristics of the population. Sample frame errors occur when the wrong subpopulation is used to select a sample. This can be due to gender, race, or economic factors. Systematic errors occur when the result from the sample differ significantly from the result of the population. How research use stratified sampling manhood, journal article A. According Lauren Thomas 2020, in a stratified sample, research divide a population into homogeneous subpopulation called strata, the plural of stratum, based on the specific characteristics. Every member of the population studied should be in the exactly on stratum. Each stratum is the one sampling using another probability. Sampling manhood serves as a cluster or sample random sampling, allowing researchers to estimate statistical measure for each subpopulation. Researchers rely on stratified sampling when the population characteristics are deserved and they want to ensure that every characteristic is properly represented in the sample. Implication of this finding are that students in human resource management in the graduate program need to be equipped to work in the digital era and should acquire competencies in data analysis and technology literacy. How research use random sampling method, journal article B. According Great Despacio 2021, random sampling is a method used to pull a smaller sample size from a larger population and use it to research and make generalization about the larger group. Research generate a simpler random sample by obtaining an exhaustive list of a larger population and selected at random a certain number of the individual to comprise the sample. With a sample random sample, every member of the larger population has a equal chance of being selected. One is a manual lottery method. Each member of the ledger population group is assigned a number. Next, number are drawn at random to comprise the sample group. The last one is a conclusion. In conclusion, it can be said that using a sample in research save mainly on money and time. If a suitable sample is used, appropriate sample size selected, and necessary precaution taken to reduce on sampling and measurement errors, then a sample should yield valid and reliable information.
Thank you. That's all for today. This is our presentation, which is for our Journal A and Journal B.